Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. My name is Jamie Ochoa, and I am the chairman. Will the secretary please do a roll call?
Mr. Parenti?
Here.
Mr. Woods?
Here.
Mr. Babowis?
Here.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Here.
Ms. Zadko? Here. And Chairman Ochoa. Mr. Peterson is absent.
Here. With that, the CDC has a quorum present. First thing we need is a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 17th, 2023. Woo. Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of April
17th,
17th,
2023. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
There being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying yes.
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 All those opposed signify by stating no. The motion carries, the minutes are approved. Moving on to tonight's public hearings, Mr. Conway, as chairman, I request that you serve as the public hearing facilitator.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. For our public hearings tonight, all testimony will be given under oath. At the hearing, there will be an opportunity for the public to offer testimony and to comment. Following the public hearing, the CDC's deliberations will be open to the public in the sense that all are invited to listen and watch. The public, however, may not speak during the CDC's deliberation portion. We ask that the applicants here tonight give specific evidence to demonstrate that the proposal meets the standards of approval for the request. The burden is on the applicant to prove the case. Additionally, city staff will provide a general description of the proposal followed by their analysis. With respect to others who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why you believe the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the request. Finally, we'll strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. However, those wishing to submit evidence and testimony will be afforded sufficient time which to do so. Whether you're a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of the applicant, you'll be placed under oath and then begin by stating your name and address. You'll be subject to questions by the Community Development Commission and potential cross-examination by the applicant. To allow as many people as possible to be heard, we would request that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes, please. If additional time is needed, the hearing may be continued until the next available hearing date. Also, when you present any of your statements, we ask the applicant to do the same. Just approach the podium and make your statements for the podium. Okay, I will call tonight's first matter. This is CDC 2023-04. This case involves an application for zoning variation for a fence to allow construction of a 6-foot-high privacy fence in the front yard of the property located at 331 North Central Avenue in the city of Wooddale. Mr. Ronald Rule is the applicant and the owner of the property. Staff, can you please indicate when the notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper?
Andrew, would you raise your right hand? State your name, please, and address.
Andrew Coteras, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, a public hearing notice was published on June 30th, 2023, and the certificate of publication is on file with the Community Development Department.
Okay, great, excellent. Okay, and is the applicant here tonight?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Rule, would you wish to make a presentation? Or make some comments in favor of your request?
Should I make it
Yeah, just up at the podium there. And then you'll be sworn in by the secretary.
And would you raise your right hand, state your name and address, please?
Ron Rule, 331 North Central Avenue, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
I
you
do.
God? Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Rule.
Okay, so basically, I'm just looking to put a 6-foot privacy fence along the side drive of my house. That's it.
Okay. Does any member of the CDC have any questions for Mr. Rule?
Yes, what is the reason?
Secure my property and for aesthetics for the neighborhood.
Okay. Any other questions?
What is unique about your property that requires you to bring your case up here?
My house is backwards. Everyone else their house faces east and west. Mine faces north and south. So technically, my side drive is in my front yard. So I guess that's where the variance comes in.
Okay. Any other questions from the CDC members? Okay. Staff, is there anything you'd like to add to this case?
There is.
Okay.
And we apologize for the technical difficulties. We don't seem to have a slideshow anymore. But we will go through our presentation verbally in any case.
Yeah, hold on one second, Andrew. Mr. Rule, you can sit down
Okay.
if you'd like. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
No worries. So just to provide a little more context and staff perspective on this application at 331 North Central Avenue, the subject property is located at the northeast corner of Central Avenue and Commercial Street. The property is classified as R4, medium density, single family zoning, and is currently occupied by the applicant. So on our slideshow, we had a diagram of a fully code compliant 6-foot privacy fence. And typically, privacy fences of this sort are only permitted in side and rear yards, whereas 3-foot open or decorative fences are permitted in all yards. Because the subject property is a corner lot abutting another corner lot, the city code has a provision that the fence may extend directly to from the rear building line of the principal structure directly to the corner side lot line, as you may be able to see in the staff memo that was on our presentation. So essentially, as it was stated by the applicant, the fence would be located in what is technically considered his front yard, the front yard of the property. And essentially, as it was mentioned, fences of this sort are not generally allowed. Hence the request for a variation. So this new fence would consist of 2 segments. So one running north to south, generally parallel to the existing attached garage, and then another one east to west along the front facade of the house. So this would fully enclose not all, but part of that front yard. So it should be noted that the home has an unusually large setback, as was mentioned by the applicant, from the street compared to neighboring properties on Central Avenue. So most homes up here are set back about 35 feet from the property line, whereas the applicant's home is set back about 65 feet. So what this causes is essentially a reduced amount of usable rear yard space for recreation. And so granting of this variation would be constructed, would allow the fence to be constructed almost entirely within the buildable area of the lot. And so what this would do is create a kind of consistent street wall along Central Avenue that's aligned with the existing facades of the homes on that street. So the design of the fence is a natural wood stockade variety. The fence panels are measuring approximately 8 foot long by 6 foot high. And we did have a diagram provided by the applicant. It should be in your staff memo for reference. So in terms of our analysis and compliance with the comprehensive plan, the subject property would continue to be used as a single-family dwelling, which is consistent with the city's future land use map. The fence would also achieve Goal 3, Objective 2 of the comprehensive plan, which is to enhance the appearance and curb appeal of commercial and residential areas. This would advance the goal by creating more visually appealing streetscape along Central Avenue, which is one of our more heavily trafficked through streets in Woodville. So it has a lot of visibility. So staff did not receive any written public comments prior to the public hearing, and therefore the Community Development Department finds that the request for a zoning variation for the property located at 331 North Central Avenue is compatible with the surrounding zoning and land use classifications, meets the requirements of the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance, and is consistent with the city comprehensive plan. We also found that it is consistent with the standards of approval listed in your staff memo. Based on the above considerations, staff recommends that the Community Development Commission make a motion recommending approval of this petition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any members of the CDC that have questions for staff? Mr. Woods?
Yeah, I have one. The fence travels towards the neighbor's yard frontage, correct? Why aren't we tying in the backside to his property too? So it's enclosed.
So there is an existing fence along part of the northern property line, and then there is also an existing fence running north to south.
What kind of fence though?
I'm not aware of the type of fence. Maybe a question for the applicant.
Can I ask the homeowner something?
Absolutely.
Question, would you rather have the fence to the neighbors be part of that stockade fence?
It's the same style that I'm batting.
Pardon?
There's already a stockade fence going along the
Okay,
backside,
all right,
so
that's all I
it's,
wanted to know.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the CDC? Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to make a statement or express an opinion on the applicant's request tonight? Okay, there being no further questions of the CDC, of staff, or the applicant, no members of the public wishing to add any particular comments or statements. As of now, going to make a last call for questions. Does anybody have any questions? Last call. Okay, there being no further questions, we need a motion to close the public hearing portion of CDC case number 2023-04. We have one more question. Yes, nope, go ahead.
Ghost, this is for you. He puts this fence up. 5 years from now, a storm comes, knocks the fence down. He doesn't have to come for a variance again, does he?
Go ahead, Ms. Pacha.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
State your name and address, please.
Gosha Pocheha, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
So once the variation is granted, it's granted for the property. So if the fence is knocked down, it will be able to be rebuilt.
Okay, any further questions? Last call for questions. Okay, there being no further questions, we need a motion to close the public hearing portion of case number CDC 2023-04.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Babowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Parenti?
Yes.
Ms. Zadko?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
And Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing portion of this case is closed. Now we proceed to CDC deliberations. At this point, the floor is open to all members to express their statements and views on this particular request. Does anybody have any statement or views?
I guess I'll start out. I truly believe we need to give it to him. I know what he's going through because I live on a corner lot, and I have a fence that if it ever comes down, I can't put it back up. So you're stuck on you could have a large lot, but you can't do anything with it. So this little bit of fence, I think, is minute, and he should be able to do it.
Okay. Any other member have any statements or views on this request? Okay. There being no further statements or deliberations of the CDC, we'll now proceed to the vote portion. What I typically do, as usual, is I suggest a motion. Remember, if you vote yes, you are voting in favor of recommending the request. If you vote no, you're voting against recommending the request. And here is the recommended motion. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed zoning variation is consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, and therefore I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated July 17th, 2023, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the zoning variation to allow a 6-foot high privacy fence in the front yard of the property in case number CDC 2023-0004. That is the suggested motion. Any member can say so moved.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Babowitz,
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki,
Yes.
Mr. Parenti,
Yes.
Ms. Zadko,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
and Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. The recommendation, sir, will be to the PZB committee, which is the City Council's Planning and Zoning Committee, to recommend approval of the request. That'll go to a committee meeting, and staff can let you know when that committee meeting is going to occur. Then it will go to the full City Council, and staff will let you know when that's going to occur for their consideration. But tonight, you've got a recommended approval.
Perfect.
All right?
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Rule. Okay, before we move on to the next case, do you guys want a short recess to try to figure out the tech issues? Or? That'd be great. That would be awesome.
Yes.
Want to do a short recess? Okay.
We are at recess.
Stacy, you want to send up them there? Are you good?
Yeah, we were gonna, if we get it working, we'll display ours on that. We can just, take yours down.
Might be getting it.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. I think they have the handout.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Calling meeting back to order.
Okay, we are going to proceed on to tonight's second matter, and that is CDC case number 2023-05. This case involves an application filed by the Bensonville Park District for a special use for a playground and variations for a reduction of lot width and the installation of a sidewalk to enable construction of a playground at 475 Potter Street in the city of Wooddale. The Bensonville Park District is the owner of the currently vacant property. Staff, can you please indicate when notice of hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper?
Your name and address, please.
Gosha Pocheja, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the public hearing notice was published in Daily Herald on June 30th, and we do have a copy of the certificate of publication on file.
Excellent. And I do see that the applicant here is here tonight, Mr. Velez.
Correct.
For the Bensenville Park District. Would you like to begin your presentation?
Sure.
And would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
Joseph Velez, 1000 Wood Street, or would you like my residential address?
The Park District.
1000 Wood Street?
Thank you. Would you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
I
help
do.
you God? Thank you.
I do.
All right, the floor is yours, Mr. Velez.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the council as well as staff and the public members for allowing us to speak and address you tonight. The Bensenville Park District is in a unique situation. Part of our taxing district encompasses Wooddale. So we do have a portion of Wooddale. I'll approach just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So in the blue is all Wooddale property that the Bensenville Park District services and is part of our taxing district. The property that we're talking about tonight is this circle right here. And then the other two circles would be the closest playground for residents and or children to go to in the event that they would like to get some sort of recreation like that. At our main building, the Deer Grove Leisure Center, we have a playground. Children would have to cross Route 83. And the closest other playground is Poplar Park, where children would have to cross Irving Park Road to get to. Approximately 6 years ago, when I arrived at the Bensenville Park District, I had a meeting with Alderman Jacob and Alderman Messina. Their concern was the lack of services that the Bensenville Park District was providing specifically for the residents of Wooddale that were paying taxes into the Bensenville Park District. At that time, we devised a plan with steps to alleviate issues, and I was invited to a meeting with the residents of Wooddale that Alderman Messina and Alderman Jacob govern over. And at that meeting, the residents did display and communicate their concerns and their frustration with the Bensenville Park District. I was at the Bensenville Park District when I attended this meeting for approximately 7 days. So in listening to these concerns, we put a plan together to alleviate most of the concerns, which we did. The playground was part of a physical addition to the Wooddale properties, again, that the Bensenville Park District governed over. Then the pandemic came in, and we were now waiting about 4 years for this playground. We were notified approximately 6 months ago that the Park District's application for a Kaboom playground, I will not assume that everybody knows what a Kaboom playground is. Kaboom is a nationwide organization that connects communities that are underserved with playground facilities with park districts or other organizations so that this playground can be built in a day. Really, it's 3 days, but the volunteer aspect of it is a one-day process. So basically, residents, other volunteers would come in and build this playground in a day. After that day is over, the children would be able to use the playground. I have done 2 of these playgrounds in my career, and they are indeed built in a 3-day period. Other amenities are put in this playground if the Park District wishes to do so, which we do in a Phase 2 and a Phase 3, so that we can make this playground the best it can be for the residents that live in the area, as well as that are starved for recreation facilities because of where they are located in a residential map. So the Park District did get notification from Kaboom that they would like the Park District to move forward with this playground. At that point, we communicated with the Planning Department and found out about the zoning change and requested some variances for this location because the property that we own was zoned residential, and we believe and we're told that it had to be zoned special use. So at this point, we have gone through a couple of steps to get this playground and make it a reality. Our build days are scheduled for September 12th through the 14th. and we're ready to move forward pending your approval.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions of the CDC for Mr. Velez? Mr. Woods?
Do you have all the volunteers in place for this kaboom?
We are gathering them now. Discover Financial, the Discover credit card, have committed to bringing 100 volunteers from their corporate office in Riverwoods. And so we're about 8 volunteers short, and I count 8 of you up there, so hopefully we will meet our goal. But the Park District is committing our staff, volunteers that we're recruiting. Tonight with me, I have our Superintendent of Recreation, our Manager of Special Services, and our Manager of Marketing and Special Information and Public Information for the Park District. But all 9 of our superintendents are assigned to this project, as well as 101% of the resources of the Park District. To answer your question, on September 14th, pending your approval, there will be a playground there.
Mr. Wood?
And I could be mistaken, but don't you guys have to come up with some money up front?
Correct. The Park District has already written a check to Kaboom for $8,500 for this project. Normally, that money is raised. And just to give you a little background, Kaboom sometimes deals with church groups, block clubs, smaller organizations that are trying to put a playground in their community. At this point, dealing with the Park District is probably the best case scenario for them, as we have the resources to support this project. We do numerous special events throughout the year. We manage approximately 400 acres of green space, 22 parks, 2 golf courses, a farm, and we have a lot of things that we do that is similar to this project. So again, September 14th, if you're out there, we will be on the swings together.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, one more, Mr.
You said stage 2 and stage 3, which is what exactly?
Well,
here's the reason I ask, because I've heard stage 2 and stage 3, and it never happened in some areas of Wooddale.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure that if you get started on this, we see it get finished, because they have been waiting a long time in that ward to get something.
Absolutely. And again, we made a promise and a commitment to those residents, and it's a promise made and a promise kept. So our phase 2 and our phase 3, we would like to get some residential input from the residents that live in the area. We did a 500-piece mailing to the residents in the area to let them know about our design day and other opportunities for the public to participate in the conceptual design of the playground. So a phase 2 and a phase 3, we'd like to get input from the playground, but from the residents, but it could be something like this. We would like to put in benches, maybe gardens for the community to adopt, potentially a gazebo, maybe a spray pool for the young kids, not a water park, but a spray pool that they can walk into on very hot days and get wet. So those type of things. But again, we would like to talk to the residents about what they would like to see in their neighborhood. They own that property and they fund the Park District, so they are our bosses.
Okay. Still got another one?
Mr. Bama?
Yeah, first question. I live in that area, and I pay the taxes. I didn't get one of those 500 letters, so I knew nothing about it. That's a separate issue. The thing I want to ask you is that when it comes to maintenance, staffing, insurance costs, who pays for that, Bensonville or Wooddale?
So the Bensonville Park District, the residents of Wooddale that are in our taxing district are treated like the residents who live across the street from our main offices. Right now, the Park District cuts the grass, sprays the green space for weeds and other things. We maintain that property 101% and will continue to do so. No additional cost. We're already paying for it.
Okay.
Question. First, thank you for leading your team into doing, making things like this happen. Just please help me understand. You mentioned it actually takes 3 days to accomplish something like this, but Kaboom gets it done in 1 day, and after that 1 day, which is the volunteer event, all hands on deck, so to speak, is considered safe to play. Is that correct?
Sure. So if I could explain an approach. So the playground is made up, obviously, of various elements. On day one, which is not a volunteer day for the average resident, all the posts that you see here are buried in a footing with concrete because they are the main structure of the playground. So we certainly, while we respect all the volunteers and the residents that would come out, we want specialized people to put that down because that is the main part of the playground. Day two, some of these larger decks will go in. And then on day three, the smaller parts of the playground that are more manageable will go in, and that's the part of the volunteers from the residents that they would be able to accomplish in the playground. So obviously, we want to get the infrastructure in right correctly, as that is the basis for the entire playground.
Thank you for clarifying. Next question. You mentioned you had 500 mailers. Did you get any feedback or anybody show up from those out of those 500 mailers?
We had very few people show up, probably less than 15 between Bensonville and Wooddale residents, but we did get a significant amount of people answer a survey that they were asked to chime in on. So they did participate, only not in person.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood?
Yeah. You were talking about the benches in your stage 2. I believe if you talk to Kaboom, you can get them in stage 1. We have done 2 Kabooms in Wooddale with the school district, and they built benches and everything while we were there. So you might want to look into that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And respectfully, Kaboom is coming out of the pandemic, just like many of us, kind of reinvigorating our organizations. So the information that was coming from Kaboom, including that design of the playground, came very late in the process. So what we wanted to do was simplify the site plan so that it could go up for approval by your body and the city council. So we didn't want to add anything in there that was going to make the site plan any more difficult than it had to be. But I agree with you. We will, actually for this project, we have projects that the kids on a prior day, because during September 12th to the 14th, they're going to be in school. But on a prior day, we're going to have the kids and other volunteers come out and build benches, picnic tables, and other things that will go into the playground.
Any other questions for the applicant, Mr. Velez, tonight?
What is the base part where they're playing? What is that going to be made out of?
That'll be playground wood chips.
Oh, wood chip.
The soft surface, correct.
Any additional questions? Okay, Mr. Velez, you can take a seat for now. We're going to give staff the opportunity to make its comments, and we'll go from there. Staff, are you ready to make your comments?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right.
So I hope everyone can still see the screen even with the presentation boards. Is that okay? So general location, most of you are probably very familiar with the location. This is kind of eastern side of the city of Wooddale. The property is actually bound by 3 streets. We have Potter Street on the north, there's Spruce on the east, and then Arbor Lane on the south. The property is located within an existing residential subdivision. It's called Arborwood subdivision. In terms of the existing conditions, the property is a little bit over half an acre in size. It does consist of 5 parcels. There was a land of subdivision, plat of subdivision prepared years ago, and really the intent was for the property, there were supposed to be townhomes constructed on the property. That was right around the time where recession hit and those buildings were never constructed. In 2015, the Bensonville Park District acquired this property, so currently it is vacant. Going back to those 5 parcels, we are asking the Park District to consolidate the 5 parcels into one. They are already working on the plat of consolidation, so that will go before City Council. Just a reminder, based on our Chapter 17 and UDO requirements, typically plat of consolidation does not need CDC approval. So right now we are recommending the special use, and there's a condition in there for the lot consolidation to be approved by City Council, but that will be handled a little bit later. as soon as the document is prepared. As I mentioned, the property is currently vacant and it is zoned RG, which is general residential property. There is no rezoning request, just to clarify. However, because it is a residential zoning district, our table of permitted uses notes that playground is only permitted as a special use. That's why this request was submitted for this application. So existing conditions for anyone who is not very familiar with the property. This is a view looking northeast. So as you can see, there's a bit of an existing sidewalk from the residential property that's adjacent to the west. And really it's a vacant lot. There are some existing trees on the property, but not a lot. This is looking the other direction, so kind of looking northwest. The playground essentially will be kind of located more towards the western property line. Just to sum up, this is the proposed site plan exactly as we're seeing on the easel here. This is a playground that will consist of, there's a couple slides, monkey bars, swings. There are 2 benches that are being shown as part of the proposal. There will be plastic timber edging around it, and that will hold the engineered wood fiber. That's the sort of like the base for the playground. There will be new accessible parking sidewalk, connecting that playground to the sidewalk that's located on the west side of the property, connecting the residential neighborhood. I do have a little more information on sidewalk on the next slide. So this is more of like an overall view of the proposed site plan. In terms of compliance with the UDO, so there's a couple of requests that are in front of CDC tonight. One of them is obviously the special use, as I mentioned, the residential. The RG zoning district requires a special use approval for a playground. Along with the special use approval, we had to do a site plan review, which is done administratively, but it's mentioned in the staff memo. And we did mention the condition of the lot consolidation. That's how we are recommending approval of the special use, with the condition that a lot of consolidation go in front of City Council for consideration. There are also there's a variation request, a zoning variation request for lot width. So as we typically do as part of our zoning review, we look at lot development standards for this particular zoning district. And for a corner lot, and in this case, we actually, this parcel is bound by 3 streets, so it's a little bit even more than a corner lot. The lot width at the front building line has to be 90 feet. That's what the code requires. As you can see, the lot has a bit of an irregular shape, and honestly, this dates back to, I want to say 1925, where all of the original subdivision was subdivided. So really, that's just how the streets were connected. This was prior to the existence of our current UDO. So the parcel, the way it is right now, it's not able to meet that code requirement for lot width. So in order to make it code compliant, there is a zoning variation request for the reduction of that lot width because of the existing condition. There is an additional relief request for the sidewalk. So as I mentioned, the applicants are proposing to connect the sidewalk to the existing sidewalk on the west side part. That's the existing neighborhood. There is also an existing sidewalk on the north, so you can see in the blue line. There is an existing public sidewalk on the north side, and then we have one along Spruce. What is not being proposed at this time is this connection between the two. A lot of it is really cost-driven, just to be able to improve that property. The Park District is seeking relief for construction of the fence, the sidewalk. That is something that potentially could be considered in the future phases, maybe if there's some grant funding that becomes available. But ultimately, there will be accessible access to the parking lot, but only from the existing sidewalk that's already there in the neighborhood. Instead of in case of landscaping. So as I mentioned, there are a couple existing trees. There's really not many. Those will stay. The placement of the park was really designed just to make sure that the existing landscaping can remain. Our code does require screening between the residential property that's to the west. So the applicants are proposing to install an evergreen screen. These will be arborvitae 6 feet tall. They will be spanning the property line, the residential property adjacent. And there's also 2 shade trees that will be added. Because of the partnership and sort of discussion as this project was evolving, the City of Wooddale Public Works Department has agreed to plant approximately 6 street trees, so parkway trees, during the next phase. So they're not really shown on the plan, but some additional landscaping will be added in the parkway in the next cycle for planting the trees. Compliance with the comprehensive plan. So the space was already designated as open recreational space in our future land use plan of the comprehensive plan. So definitely this use is in compliance with the future land use plan. And there are a couple goals and objectives that this plan helps to meet, especially when it comes to providing services to community and different organizations working together to serve the public. We also hope that this will enhance the neighborhood by providing more of a public service to the residents. We did not receive any public comments related to this petition. As our UDO required, we sent out notices to property owners within 250 feet of the subject property. As it was mentioned before, the Park District actually went out a little bit further out. There are a couple streets that really they went out. So I believe there was over 660 pieces of information that were mailed out. Just to let people know about the design phase, not necessarily this public hearing, but just the design day that was held by the Park District. We have not received any calls or emails or any contact prior to the public hearing. So really to sum up, staff recommends that CDC recommend approval. We find that the requests are consistent with the comprehensive plan, the standards of approval, and with the UDO. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions of staff from the CDC members? Mr. Woods?
Gosha, are they going to be able to meet that timeline they need for their build date? With the
Correct.
city doing all their stuff?
Correct. It is anticipated that after tonight's meeting, we're moving to the PZB and City Council in August. So I believe by August 20th, the City Council should be able to have the final vote, which will be prior to the September build date.
Okay. Ms. Zathko?
Is street parking allowed?
Correct.
Park is-
I apologize, I did not talk about that component. So our code does not have parking requirements for playgrounds. But in a lot of cases, neighborhood parks, they're really just servicing the residents that live in the area. So most of them, we assume, will walk or bike to the area. But there is street parking available. And because there are so many streets surrounding it, we feel that should be sufficient.
Any other questions of staff from the CDC members? Okay, is there any member of the public here tonight who would wish to make a comment? Okay, well, I saw your hand up first, ma'am, so if you'd like to approach the podium, please. And ma'am, if you could just tell us your name and address, and then you'll be sworn in, okay?
My name is Marie Malone. I live at 440 Hiawatha in Wooddale. I'm on the east end.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
I've lived in Wooddale for 38 years. I raised 2 daughters, and I have 4 grandchildren. Everything that I have ever done with my family that pertains to Park District has been across an 8-lane highway. I had to drive them there, pick them up. Never were we able to walk. Oh, excuse me, we do have Lake Minnehaha. That's on Hiawatha across the cul-de-sac. And then we have the pond on the other end, which I wouldn't even let my children go there. I now have 2 grandchildren that I feel would benefit from this park. They could ride their scooters, they could walk, I would walk with them, my husband would walk with them, and I have been waiting patiently for something to be given to my ward from Bensonville Park District because we pay a lot of tax dollars. We have no sidewalks. My children played at the cul-de-sac on the street. We had to put up with comments and insults from some of the residents. They didn't want our kids there. And closer to my house, one of the owners of the property actually had the village put in a circular landscape with trees and shrubs and rocks because he did not want our children to play there. So the fact that Joe Velez has told me that this is going to happen for my ward, I am very elated. I always watch what goes on in my neighborhood. I drove by that parcel of land, and I was very upset that I saw tons of weeds, the grass was tall, and the first thing I did as I went across 83 to their parks that were beautifully landscaped, all the lawn was cured, there were no weeds, there weren't all those little things flying around that were on my street. He called me back. He said that I will have somebody out there tomorrow, Marie, and I can tell you that it is much improved. So I know that my neighborhood would appreciate it. When I lived there, there were 16 children on my street, and I know that there are a lot of kids that live in those condos that go around the bend. I see them all the time. I see them at the bus stop, and I think that this is something that we deserve.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am, thank you.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Sandra Logalvo, 165 North Spruce in Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
So my husband Frank and I actually live, I don't know if you can you just pull up one of the maps? That's great. We actually live right across the street from this area, and I look out at it every day that I work from home out of my office. So this is actually a really great thing that I'm really glad to hear about. But the first notice that we received was the notice to come to this meeting. We also did not receive, even though we live literally across the street, we did not receive the planning design notice. But we're highly invested in getting this done and getting it done well. So I wanted to just kind of talk about a few of my concerns. I love a lot of the design ideas that have been put forth, but I have some concerns. First, the sidewalk, the lady who just spoke talked about the fact that there are, well, she said no sidewalks. There's such patchy sidewalks that people are constantly walking in the street to get around, and under this proposed the proposed plan, especially what they're asking for you for relief is to not finish the sidewalk, which means that to access that accessible sidewalk, you have to go to that neighbor's driveway, and that's the only way to get in. So that's a big concern. You know, I came to a board meeting a few months ago, and I talked about finishing the sidewalk across the street, because there's again, it's patchy, and finishing that sidewalk and making it accessible, I think is really important, and I think that should be part of the plan. In addition, the parking was also discussed, and I don't know if any of you guys drive this way, but living right across the street, we are constantly getting lots and lots of traffic. People use Potter and Spruce to cut through between 83 and Irving Park Road, and it is very, very busy. So that means that the only real place to park is along Arbor Lane, which is only a few cars, and there's residences right there. And so one of the things that I think should be done, maybe in a future phase, but I think is really important, is to put in some kind of extra parking plan, whether it be even just a few pull-off streets in case somebody needs to drive their kids there, or something, because it's not safe to park on Potter or Spruce, really. We had a car parked in front of our house, and somebody knocked off the light because they were, speeding to try to get through. If you park on Arbor Lane, those residents might have a difficulty getting out of their driveway. In addition, I want to talk about lighting and security, because that is definitely a concern. Just a few weeks ago, around July 4th, I was sitting up looking over this space, and I noticed that there was a few teenagers kind of just hanging out there, and I could tell because I could hear them and I could see a cell phone light, but there is not a single light in this area. And I think that if a park goes in, which I definitely want to happen, I think lighting is actually really important and needs to be a part of that plan. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay.
So.
Does any member of the CDC have questions for this member of the public? Okay. Does the applicant want to make any response to any of the items brought up by this?
Yes, so I would agree with the resident about the lighting, so we will look into trying to get that installed before we get into the winter months. There minimally should be a security light that faces west to east, so it does not impact the resident who lives right next door to the playground. Additionally, the park district is going to put in additional sidewalks that allow handicap accessibility into the playground. So it will connect up with the existing sidewalks that are there now, so that they will go right into the playground and connect up with an ADA compliant ramp that will allow a person in a wheelchair or with any physical disability to be able to go into that playground without having to walk across the grass. The park district would like to utilize any additional funding to put up a fence around the playground to keep the kids in and minimize the percentage of times that a child could run into one of these three streets that, again, we have witnessed a tremendous amount of traffic, so I would agree with you again on that.
Okay. Any questions, CDC members? Yes.
I think your points were very well taken. Thank you. What about the parking issue?
Yep, so obviously if you're familiar with that space, parking there is a challenge, but playgrounds such as this one usually have residents who walk to that playground because it is a very condensed community. And I'm not going to say that no one is going to drive there, but I would believe that probably not a whole bunch of people would. It's a pretty basic playground versus a playground that has, a tremendous amount of features in there. What we could do is, out of sympathy to the neighbors, maybe ask the city to look at, I don't know if there's space for diagonal parking, a couple of spots in there, or potentially some parking that has time frames on it. You can only park there for 2 hours, so you can't stay there overnight. Things like that I've seen used in other locations, that I've used in other locations of park districts that I've managed, that have alleviated some parking issues. But that is a challenged area for parking, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think you're right about the kids will be coming on bicycles, et cetera. But if you say it's a challenged area, then I think it should be corrected.
Yeah, so I'm willing to work with the city council and the planning department to figure out an option and a solution to that.
Can I make another comment, or am I done?
No, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, can I ask you to take a seat for a moment, and any further statements, can you please make them up at the podium, because we're being recorded tonight.
I agree with this lady about traffic. Once school starts and all these kids are coming from high school, they come across 83 and they're going to go to Irving Park the way that she said. We also have on that street Soto scrap metal that has a ton of people there regularly. Trucks, and even when I try to get out, because that's the way I go. I go the way she said to get to Irving Park. I have for 38 years. Sometimes I can't even get my car through because there's so much trucks, vans, metal sticking out all over the place, and you have to wait for the car that's coming in the opposite direction to move before you can go the way that you want to go. So I think those two things are true. There's going to be a lot of traffic. And I agree with Joe that The people in my area they're gonna walk. They're gonna walk with their kids. There's people walking down my street constantly. And we're just so excited to the fact that we're going to have something that our children can enjoy.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, Mr. Woods, you had a follow-up question?
Yes. For you. Can't we fit in some angled parking up to that sidewalk where we want to put the new sidewalk in, all the way from the start to the corner?
So are
And
you
so-
talking on Potter or?
Arbor.
Arbor?
Yep.
Uh,
Because it certainly looks like it could house probably 10 cars easy. if
Yep,
it
so
were
I
an
would like
angled
to
parking.
investigate that. So if I could just give a little background.
Well, I just want to say one other thing, is
Sure.
we keep saying how a lot of people are going to walk to the park. I agree with it, because I got a park near me, they walk to the park. But that whole ward's been waiting for a park. And a lot of them are not, they're pretty far away, they're not going to walk. They're going to drive over there.
I would
So
agree.
I think we better think about this right now.
Yeah, so when we were notified about the Kaboom Playground, it really put us in a weird mode, because we were behind the 8 ball right off the start, because they told us, originally they told us that we were going to have a build day in July, and then they delayed, and then they released it at the last second. We, and this is not an exaggeration, we're given at times 2 hours to make decisions on things. And, July 3rd, we're getting asked to make a decision on what we want to get written on the playground equipment. I got a call at 10 o'clock, and I said, okay, what's our deadline? Thinking July 6th, 7th, 8th, 1 o'clock. That was on July 3rd. So we have not had a chance to investigate some of these issues, but I've been in the business about 39 years, my superintendent of recreation, about the same amount of time. So I think that we can come up with some options, work with the planning department, work with the city, and come up with some options. Our number one priority is the safety of all the kids that are going to use the playground. So I think we can come up with some options, maybe, and really investigate some diagonal parking. And if by chance we don't exactly meet the zoning code, and I don't exactly know what it is, so we're still going to have to investigate it. Hopefully, when we come back in front of your body, that you can take that into consideration, that this is 100% for the safety of the children, as well as the residents who live in the area, that they're not being negatively impacted by a great facility like this.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant?
There was concerns about the sidewalks, and I'm having a hard time visualizing it. Can we go to the one slide? No, the other one. Forward. I think it's forward.
The aerial?
Right there. Ma'am? Over there, ma'am. What was your exact concern on the sidewalks? Is there any way we can give you a pointer, or can you show us exactly what you were?
Yeah, sure. It was actually the red part that they proposed relief of and not having to build. Okay. So can you go back to the aerial view for a second? So there's a lot of walkers in this area. A lot of them walk, this sidewalk you see at the very top, right below Potter. It goes around, it comes down, it stops right here. What they're proposing to do is go a little bit further and into the park, which is great. They're proposing, though, not to connect to the other sidewalk and make it a loop, which means that not only do you still have to walk in the street in Arbor Lane if you are interested in doing the lap, or if you're coming from other areas, right? But also the only accessible way to get to the park is to go into this person's driveway and then take that sidewalk, because that's the only sidewalk that they're proposing to build. So the solution would be, number one, to build the rest of the sidewalk and connect the loop. And number two, there is definitely space for some sort of parking. It has, this has to be torn up a little bit, and then somehow connect the sidewalk to one of the parking spaces.
Joe, question for Joe. Is the reason for that sidewalk proposal a financial impact?
Correct. It is, obviously when we started taking on this project, we were not aware, nor did we plan for connecting the sidewalk that's on the yellow line in the bottom left-hand of the gold box all the way around that property. We always knew with any playground that we build that we have to have ADA accessibility into the playground. We by law have to do that, but we also will do that. So what I would say to this, and I say this respectfully, so there is just a simple curb around that entire property. You know, walking on the grass for a walker to, you know, cease their walk on the sidewalk on the north and continue walking around the park and connecting up with that sidewalk in front of the residence home, you know, is not a long walk. But from the perspective of the cost of a concrete sidewalk to go and meet up with those two ends, again, we were notified in the middle of our budget year about this project, so this is an unbudgeted item for us. We are probably now going to put in somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 into this playground that the Park District did not budget into our budget, our fiscal budget.
Mr. Woods?
I'm sitting here listening and I'm hearing the budget. These people have been without a park forever. They've been paying you taxes forever. It's not like this just happened today. I understand the kaboom came up, but I would think you guys could stretch a few dollars to finish that sidewalk.
Well,
Just my voice.
I guess the question is, the Park District putting in a playground, having to complete a sidewalk that would be considered infrastructure in the city, is that what the playground requires to be put in? That we have to put in infrastructure to connect up two sidewalks that maybe the developer should have done?
So is that what you're telling me where we're at? We want to fight
No,
with the city to see who's going to do the sidewalk?
No, you posed a
Because now I
question
know
to
the
me.
sidewalk's not going to get done, is it?
Well, no, never said that. We said we're looking at a phase 2 and a phase 3. Again, this plan came to us probably 90 days ago.
How many feet of sidewalk is it?
I believe the city has that.
I believe it was around 150. It was a rough estimate, 150, 160 feet.
Is that sidewalk normally on us or on them?
So typically, when a private property is being developed, the developer is responsible for installation of the sidewalk.
So in the spirit of moving this forward, Joe, and we vote later this evening, is there some kind of promise that in the near future sometime that portion will be highly looked at?
So the Park District will consider many things in this project that we haven't considered yet because we just really wanted to get through the zoning process, the variance process, and getting the permit approved because we are backed up to a September 12th deadline. So that was really our emphasis, was to get this site plan approved so it can go to the city council in August so that we can tell our funder, Discover and Kaboom, that we're going to build this in September. If this process were somehow going to extend in September, I would feel quite nervous having a financial group as well as the Kaboom group telling them that we don't have the permit or the approval to build the playground yet.
Another question, Joe, with regards to the fencing that is planned at some point, how many entry points would be installed in that fencing?
Probably looking at it somewhere in the neighborhood of 3. So coming from the north and from the south and from the east, fencing entryways to come into that. Again, we would have to look at it really in a very critical way to see what's the best thing. Maybe 2 entry points would probably be best. You know, if you're a parent and you have a child that you have to worry about running into the street, maybe you want less entry points or less escape points at that point. Or, you know, what I've done in other playgrounds that I've built that have been similar to a location like this is put in a double gate, almost so the child can get out through the first gate, but then they have to get out through a second gate. So parents, if they saw their child escaping through that first gate, they would hopefully catch them before they got through the second gate. And again, all for the consideration of safety.
My next question is for a city. We have a water station across the street?
I believe it's a pump station, yes.
And the land next to it, is there any consideration, possibilities of allowing people to park in that area to utilize the park?
So, I'm sorry, so not on this side of the street, but to the property to the north? I'm not sure if I understand the location.
Well, by the water station. I think there's a gravel there, open area.
I believe that is a private property. I'm not sure if city owns it. It's on the north side of
Right.
Potter.
Right.
I believe it's private.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions, CDC members?
I do have one last one. Let me run this by you a little, because I've seen all different parks. What if we only fence Potter and Spruce and leave Arbor open, and the money you save from that, you can build a sidewalk?
Well, again, we'd like to hear from the residents, because what we did here was just the opposite, which was, instead of putting up the sidewalk, can you fence this in? So that's where we came up with that option.
I understand them wanting it fenced because Potter is outrageous.
Sure.
Especially in the mornings.
I agree.
Afternoons, when that scrapyard's running crazy. But the Arbor end of it is more residential. And don't get me wrong, I know cars will turn on it, but I'm thinking they would bend a little if they were getting their sidewalk.
Well, nothing is out of the open consideration. At this point, we're trying to just get the approval for the playground to be built, and then we'll go looking into all the other aspects of what can go into that playground and what can go into that area. I can't stress enough, when we were approached by Kaboom about this project, we immediately contacted your planning department, and at that point, we were under a deadline to get everything done when we started looking at the timeline to get everything approved. So we, up till now, have really just focused on getting the approval so that we can build the playground. Nothing is off the table in consideration of a sidewalk, a fence, trees, gazebo, benches, everything. We just haven't had the opportunity to plan it like we normally would do a playground.
And I understand all that, but you're not telling us when they'll get it. And I've seen too many parks get done. Stage 1 gets done, 5 years later, Stage 2 ain't even started yet.
Okay.
And I understand why you want to do it, and I do want you to do it because the Kaboom, it's free, that's good. But at the same time, they need some sort of a promise that this sidewalk's going to go in. Absolutely going to go in. Not maybe if it's in the budget, or it absolutely is going to go in within a year or two, whatever.
Well, I'm not going to make you a promise without investigating what you're asking me to do. That's how promises get broken. Now, with that being said, I would love to see if the city has some sort of sidewalk program that we can partner up with the city to improve that property over there as partners in this process. So I would like to investigate everything. A cost for a sidewalk like that has to get board approval from the park district, and I can't make that commitment, and I'm not going to make that commitment without going through the proper channels at the park district. But what I will tell you and what I will promise you is that I will take all these considerations in, put together an additional Phase 2 and Phase 3 site plan, so to speak, add to it, and try to bring in everything that the residents want. That's where this process started 15 days into my career in Bensenville.
Okay, do we have any other member of the public? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say something. I agree with Commissioner Woods. This thing could go for 5 years, 3 years to get in sidewalks and parking. My concern is that if you go and try to get additional funds or however you go about it, somebody in the city of Bensenville is going to say, no, we're not going to do it. Let them pay for it or let them do it. And the park is over in Wooddale. What do we care? We got to take care of Bensenville. I can see that happening.
Well, respectfully, sir, I don't see that happening. The residents that live in our taxing district are treated as if they lived across the street from City Hall in Bensenville. So I respectfully disagree with you. As the director, that will not happen.
Can you guarantee that it's going to get things, if you bring it up, it'll get approved?
I can't guarantee you that because I'm not going to speak for 5 board members, just as nobody can speak for your vote.
Well, that's my concern, is the 5 board members
sir,
saying, no,
respectfully,
we're not going to do it.
Sir, respectfully, it's a democratic process. As you all vote on things, I respect that process, and I'm not going to speak for my 5 board members. I will make a case for the safety of our children. And your children are our children. They're all the same, so there is no line of designation, geographic maps, or boundaries. So they're all the same. So I will put together the Phase 2 and Phase 3 on it, and I'm not going to make an empty promise to you. That I will not do.
So what you're saying, you're going to put it out there, but you can't guarantee that it'll be done.
I will not speak on behalf of my board members' votes.
That's what, well, I'm speaking on behalf of that, I don't trust them.
Well, hopefully you don't know them, and
No, I
hopefully when you get to know them, you will trust them. The fact that I'm here tonight, the Park District has made a commitment to allocate funds for this playground. And again, going back in history, I represent the Park District and I represent the history of the Park District, even though I wasn't there. But moving forward, I'm going to change the history of the Park District's relationship with our residents who live in Wooddale, because they are our residents. We treat them.
You know, I believe everything you're saying. I respect that. But I just don't know about those 5 members, how they're going to vote.
Well, again, I'm not going to speak for them.
No,
but
you can't. I mean, you can't.
Right.
I understand that.
But I will tell you this.
My point is, it just as Commissioner Wood said, it might be 5 years before that sidewalk goes in or any kind of parking goes on.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know how much money I have in my pocket, but I'd be willing to bet every penny I do and more that that's not going to happen. So the fact that I'm here tonight, I can speak confidently that we're going to do the right thing there, and that's not an empty promise. We made a promise to your residents a while back that we would do this, and we did. This was the first available time we could. And I have 3 boards in my office from Landscape Structures that in the event Kaboom did not approve this sidewalk, or I'm sorry, this playground, we were going to fund a playground ourselves and put it in the budget. So I think I sent those to Ms. Malone when she asked me for that. The boards that I sent her were not Kaboom boards. They were Landscape Structure boards, which is a playground company, the best playground that's built in the Park District world. These 3 options were what I committed to build if Kaboom said that they weren't going to fund this playground. So with that being said, I'd love for you to trust me.
So are you saying there is some money maybe available?
There's always money.
Yeah, I know.
There's always money.
I pay taxes. I'm part of that Bensenville Park District, so I'm paying your taxes.
Well,
been doing that for 30 years.
Well, again, I can't speak for what happened in the past. I can only speak what's going on now. Your properties that we manage are being managed just as well as the ones at my office.
Go ahead, Mr. Woods.
Okay.
If the
hopefully you can
Kaboom
get it
did-
done. Just hopefully you can get it done. We trust you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You were
trust-
saying,
But trust is one thing, getting it done is another.
Well, I've been in the business 39 years, and one thing that you don't know, but I'll share with you, is when I was hired at the Bensenville Park District, I was hired for 30 days. They were in between directors. I've been there over 6 years. So I'm there for a reason. I think if you ask anybody in Bensenville, you can ask anybody you want, my detractors or whoever. They may not care for my bedside manner sometimes because I tell the truth. But what they can't say is that our Fisher Farm isn't the best it's ever been. White Pines Golf Course is the best it's ever been. You go to our parks, they're the best that they've ever been. And our programs that we offer are the best that they've ever been. Go ask somebody about that. I don't care who it is.
Okay. Mr. Woods.
well, to counter on that, I would go ask everybody in that ward, and they'd say, hey, we haven't ever seen a park.
Well, now they are.
But you were saying that if the Kaboom didn't come through, you were going to build anyway.
Correct.
So if we get you okayed for Kaboom, why don't you have the money for the sidewalk?
Well, again, so we have a playground schedule of all the playgrounds that we have when they need to be replaced. So a new playground has to be inserted into that schedule. So that's what I was prepared to do. put that into our budget for allocating those funds for it.
But if you were prepared to do that, that means there had to be money for it.
Well,
correct?
as we know in the budgetary process, there's only so much money. So when you take money from one thing and put it to somewhere else, it's being taken from one area or another. So you are correct. The Park District has a certain amount of money that it puts into its capital projects on an annual basis. And so when we do that, we have to make choices, just like we all do in our personal finances.
Understood totally.
Correct.
But what I'm saying is you said you were going to build anyway.
Yes.
Even if Kaboom didn't come. How much is Kaboom going to save you?
I'm sorry?
How much is Kaboom going to save you?
Well, for that playground there, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 for that playground.
How much do you think that sidewalk is?
I'm not up on, well, you know what, I just did some concrete work at my house. I would imagine that sidewalk's gonna be $75,000 to $100,000.
There, you got it. You were going to do it anyway.
Well,
If
like,
Kaboom didn't come, you were going to build a park.
so again, in that philosophy and that logic, we would budget the sidewalk into our budget maybe next fiscal year.
So the money that you had in your budget, that you were planning
We did
on
not have
doing-
money in the budget.
You just said that you had
No,
a...
we said we were going to put it in the budget. The project would go into the budget.
You just told me that if Kaboom didn't come, that park was going to get built anyway.
We would put the park into our budget.
All right, different.
We're in the middle of a fiscal year, so it was nothing was inserted for that location into the budget.
Okay. Is there any other member, I want to make sure the members of the public get a chance to speak. So, sir, can you please approach the podium? Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Velez.
Would you raise your right hand, please, sir? State your name and address.
Frank Legalbo, 165 North Spruce Avenue, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you
Right
swear
across
to
the street.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
I
so
do.
help you God? Thank you.
I do. Good evening. Thank you for all the spirited debate, and I do appreciate it, being a resident. I here with my wife. My wife did a great job already kind of laying down the groundwork. I only come with a few different things that I'm concerned with. First and foremost, I want to say, in my opinion, living across the street from that field, yes, you're correct. 10 cars can be put on a diagonal right along here. But phase 1 should include a sidewalk. Because this patch of land, I went too far.
I'm so sorry. It's a touch.
This patch of land is, people will hurt themselves. And guess who they're gonna come after when they do, because you didn't have a sidewalk. Now, that being said, I grew up in River Grove, okay? I grew up right down the block from this sand park that's right there on the corner of Rhodes and Richard, no, whatever it is. The point I'm trying to make is that there was a bunch of unsavory characters that would loiter. How are we going to take care of that loitering? Because I live across the street. This, with all due respect, this gentleman does not. He might be worried about the children, but I'm worried about my own safety. And don't forget that the train tracks are right there. And there's people that cut in and out right through where that patch goes for the pipeline. They come back and forth in and out from Irving Park Road. So what are we going to do as far as security? That's my biggest concern. I understand safety for the kids, but what about safety for the residents? Okay. And I understand the area needs something, but let's do it right. Let's not try to make deadlines for a company that we don't even know what their vested interest is in this whole thing, because, and forgive me, Mr. Woods, I will disagree, nothing in life is free. This is not free. I get a little bit, I tend to question motives when a company comes in and says, yeah, we'll do this, especially a big financial company. Say, yeah, we'll do this. Okay, but what is the drawback here? What are we giving in return? So far, they're saying there's no sidewalk. Well, we need that sidewalk. What else is there? What is in the terms and conditions of this Kaboom and Discover? What has to be put up? You know, what are we trading here for? And personally, I'd like to know, because I live right across the street from there. Yeah, and that's about all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to make a statement? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium.
Please, your name and address, please?
Yeah, Al Patel, 475 Dunlane Street.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes.
help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
I live on Dunlane, the street right behind it. I'm gonna take that sidewalk thing to a little bit further consideration here. If I needed to access this park, I'll have cross the street, go around, go to that sidewalk, go all the way around, and come to that park without touching the street. Or I would have to go here, walk the street, and come here and go in. Sidewalks have to be made. They have to be constructed. You shouldn't be walking in the street all the time. And that's what I'm doing when I'm going for a walk around the block. There is another park. I'd rather have a sidewalk than a park. I'll probably use that more than a park. I'm sure the residents would too, but I do agree, kids do need a park. There is a park a block over, I think it's Ash Woods or something like that. Yeah, you do have to go through some trees. That's a closer park to me, even though I live right on the other side of the street over there. So sidewalks need to be done first.
Okay.
Okay, so we need to consider sidewalks first, I think. And the other thing, I did not get that survey also that they were talking about. I think I would have probably done something about that also.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to make a statement? Sir, please approach.
Would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Alexis Sanchez, 315 North Central Avenue in Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes,
help
ma'am.
you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I just have a question about accessibility for children with disabilities. I see there's a ramp, but other than that, what does the park actually offer for children with disabilities?
Okay. Mr. Velez, would you like to take the podium?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
So in today's world, all the playgrounds that go in with public dollars are ADA compliant. So that the toys in that park are ADA compliant. Now, with that being said, in our Phase 2 and Phase 3, one of those two phases, we would like to put in additional ADA enhanced toys. We just did Brighter Palm Park on Church Street. About a year ago, we dedicated it, and that is a handicapped enhanced playground. So moving forward, our playgrounds are going to have handicapped enhanced play features in them. So by enhanced, that means the playground is already ADA compliant, but we're going to put in more.
That's it. I was just curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to make a statement or has a question? Okay. Are there any, I'm going to make a call for, last call for questions for the CDC members of staff, of the applicant. Are there any final questions of staff or the applicant?
Sir, can I
Mr. Velez?
answer the gentleman's questions or concerns about liability?
Absolutely, absolutely. Take the.
So to answer the question of what the funder requires from the park district or the agency that they partner with, they require nothing. The park district signs the contract with Kaboom, and Discover, we indemnify the entire project and the entire property from now until the end of time. So if anybody were to get hurt on the property, our risk management agency would handle all of those claims. The Park District is 100% responsible for everything that happens on that property.
Okay. Sir, if you have a follow-up statement, can you please approach the podium?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Again, so there's obviously some sort of agreement that's been drawn up. There's something that has been signed. If this happens, then if ABC happens, then XYZ happens. But within that, we don't have the finer details. We are not told what else. I'm not talking about liability. What is the city of Bensenville going to do as a promise to Kaboom if Kaboom puts in this park? Same thing with Discover. I'm always leery of corporations or just saying, here's everything, because nothing in life is for free. What are we giving up in return? That was my question.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Mr. Woods.
I'm going to touch on that a little for you because we've had 2 Kaboom grants in Wooddale for our school districts.
Mm-hmm.
What they ask is for you to have the amount of people to help them install it. They asked for an amount of money. I think ours was $10,000, yours is $8,500.
Correct.
And they get the advertising because they'll wear their shirts and everything for there. After that, they're done and gone.
There it is.
But they only do the playground area. They don't do sidewalks and stuff like that. That's why I know that we did benches. That's why I was asking him if he could try to get benches in there. But, you know, things probably change with time. I don't know if that helped you at all.
Mr. Velez, do you have a?
Yeah, so again, and I agree 101% with you in the, this is my 3rd Kaboom playground. The first 2 that I've done, Blue Cross Blue Shield and Disney, there is nothing that happens afterwards with the exception of this. Disney came back 5 years later and asked us if we needed money to fix or enhance anything that had broken in the playground, as they had a program that when they did a Kaboom playground that they didn't want to see it go into disrepair, so they were willing to fund anything that was broken or not looking up to speed 5 years afterwards. So they were a partner that came back and continued to give. Now, with that being said, again, corporate givers, I think we've all been attached to one way or another, wearing logos and things like that. Sure, they want a photo op building a playground. And I don't think that the kids that are going to benefit from this playground or others would mind that. And I know Kaboom this year has told me they've done over 100 playgrounds nationwide. They're a well-established company. You've had them, others, and I've never heard a complaint once about Kaboom. I work for the Chicago Park District for 12 years that do numerous Kaboom playgrounds every year. So I've never had a bad experience with Kaboom. And again, the group that finances them, once they're gone, they are done. The agreement that we signed has been vetted by our attorney, as well as the other ones that I've been associated with, and our attorneys are 101% good with that agreement, and if they weren't, they would tell us not to sign it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Velez. Did you have a follow-up statement, sir?
I do.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to badger, but, you know, with all due respect, I understand it's for the kids, but they don't pay the taxes. I do. So therefore, it has to go through my scrutiny. And if there is advertisement that you have traded up, we can put in this playground in exchange for advertising. I mean, that's what I heard. Did I get that wrong?
1 day.
Just 1 day?
The church they were.
Okay. So it is true. I mean, I guess what I'm asking for, somebody left their keys up here. It's truly charitable then? I mean, I want to know that.
I'm sure that they use it as a...
Right, because, I mean, if they're going to actually put up any advertising, then I want to be involved with that. Because then who controls that? And these are some of the finer questions that I think about. Because, again, it's my property, I pay the taxes, and I don't mind it being a field. I can wait. With all due respect to you, ma'am, I understand. But I'd rather it to be done right. And like I say, day one, there should be a parking lot and that sidewalk should be there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. All right, are there any additional questions that the CDC has of staff for this applicant?
I have.
Okay.
I have a question. Being at the fence and possibly the sidewalk, if these are safety issues, is there a time limit on phase 2 and 3? Yes.
There is no time limit. Actually, there is, in my world, a deadline. So when hopefully we get approval to build this, then I can take that off of my plate and know that on September 12th that we're going to be there building a playground. At that point, I can start moving towards planning for phase 2 and phase 3. I would be happy to come share them with you when I get a resolution. Normally, in these situations, we would build the playground, wait a week before we dedicate it and have the grand opening. But unfortunately, we don't have that time right now. This is quite a rushed project. So soon as we get approval, we'll start working towards what else we're going to put in the playground, what we're able to put in this year before the winter, and then what we could potentially put in next year before the summer season, maybe when it's still a little bit cold, April, and kids aren't in the playground yet.
So you can't guarantee that the fence will be put up before winter?
Well, I will say this, we have fencing projects that we've been waiting for fence installers for months to come out and do them. So, and it's not an excuse, that's a reality. So with respects to that, we can have, an order for a fence. There's a fence that we've been waiting probably 6 months at our golf course to get done. And for whatever reason, it's not getting done. The fence person doesn't have the supplies or someone else is on the list. So with respects to that, we will prioritize the fence because of the safety on it and then put other things into the future phases of this project.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Okay. So we will be closing the public hearing portion of this case. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing for case number CDC 2023-05?
Make a motion to close the hearing for CDC 2023-005.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a roll call, please.
Mr. Babowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Parenti?
Yes.
Ms. Zatko?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
And Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Okay, so the public hearing, that motion passes. The public hearing portion of this case is closed. This is now the opportunity for the CDC members to deliberate, share their views, make their comments amongst one another. Does anybody wish to make a comment or share their views? Yes, Mr. Babowitz.
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of the project. But as we spoke before, I'm concerned about the sidewalks and I'm concerned about the parking. And my concern is that will it get done and when? And so what I'm going to suggest to the board here, we have this form that we get, and I would put this attention of the city council to address those two issues when they meet, I guess, next month, and look into finding a way to get that, either get it done or get it promised with a timeline, because we all know this thing could go for a long time, and as I said about your 5 board members, I don't know how they're going to address it. You don't either.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Woods?
I gotta agree with Mr. Babowitz. I came here today thinking this was gonna be easy, get people a park. Everybody wants a park. But I'm getting no guarantees on those sidewalks. I'm getting no guarantees on those fences. I know budgets are budgets. These poor people have been waiting forever. I mean, in my eyes, the money should have been sitting there. All the other parks in Bensenville got done. They didn't get one park. So yeah, I think we need to put something in here for the council that if they're not gonna give us something, and I don't really think we should have to pay for it because we're not taxing it.
Right.
You're getting the tax dollars, not us, from that whole area. So that's my thought.
I've been paying those taxes for 30 years.
Excuse me, ma'am, the public hearing portion is closed.
You know, I've been paying those taxes for 30 years and got nothing. I
Well,
think this is great. I think this is a great thing that's coming down. But as somebody said, and I think it was the gentleman over there, got to get it right.
Correct. Yep. I say we put those 2 stipulations in there and go with that.
You want to add fences
Fences and sidewalk
and parking?
and parking.
What about lights?
I think he said they were going to take care of that. You're going to take care of the lighting, right?
Who's gonna look into it?
So I think tonight we heard a lot of good, hard questions, a lot of valid concerns from the residents, from fellow committee members. But I think Joe is the man for this job, and I trust Joe will put up a good fight with his park district, with his board members, to making sure our Wooddale residents that fall into his taxing body get their fair share. So my opinion here, I am strongly in favor of getting this done and moving it forward, and I'll put my money on Joe that he's going to put up a good fight and make sure whether we get it right away or sometime in the near future, that little by little concerns as lighting and sidewalks will be addressed and settled. And with that, I have a strong vote in moving this forward.
So, yeah, I agree with Jamie. We have faith in you, but I'll say it again for probably the 3rd time. You got 5 guys or women or whoever they are. I don't know how they're going to vote. So you may go do everything you can, and I think you would. I honestly believe that. I think there's an integrity that you have in just the short time that we've heard from you. But I wouldn't put my bet on them, Jamie. I want it done. I want to know that I'm going to get sidewalks, fencing, and parking. I want to know when, and it's going to be done, not at the mercy of the board, because I
think one of the key words that was said today was putting this parking circuit. Is that kind of what you said?
I'm sorry.
Putting this parking circuit, and once the park is up and running, putting it into your funding plan and budgeting.
Okay, and just as a point of procedure, the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. This is just for the deliberations of the members.
So, anybody else?
Yep. So what you're telling me is you want to do this with no stipulations?
Well, like any other major projects, there's financial constraints, and we can ask as much as we want. We can put all the conditions we want, but let's get the park going. And little by little, there's resources out there that Joe can look into. There's partnership conversations that can happen with the city of Wooddale to get these other items addressed.
Our job here is to send to the council what should be done and the best thing to do it with. So if that involves some stipulations, that's their choice. They may put it in, they may not.
Let me make a point.
But I think we should send it with them.
Let me make a point of procedure. Typically, stipulations are added if the applicant agrees to the stipulations. The applicant has a right, as a matter of due process, for an up or down vote on the request that they have requested. So while obviously this board can put stipulations, I always suggest if the applicant doesn't agree to those, as a matter of due process, this is a legal proceeding, they do have a right to a vote on the request that they have put forward. Obviously, the city council can always put conditions on the relief ultimately. It's up to the city council ultimately to put, accept conditions, any conditions, or put conditions on. My suggestion, and I think all members have done an excellent job tonight voicing your concerns about the sidewalk issue, the fencing issue, the parking issue. Those are all concerns of record. And as Mr. Babowitz pointed out, in the forms, you can also write down your written concerns, and we can send those on to the city council. But just as a matter of procedure, this applicant does have a right to a vote, up or down vote on the request that they have submitted. Are there any other comments, viewpoints that you wish to express before we move to the vote?
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking they're gonna be 100% liable for anything that happens on that property. So I don't think they're gonna put off forever, for years and years, for a fence or sidewalk, because anybody has any issues, and it's on them, it's not gonna be on us. So he said he was gonna do it. I mean, for their best interest, I think they will.
And they've also been waiting how many years to get anything? It was in their best interest to get it years ago. That's why I don't want to take just the faith of it. I believe we need to have a stipulation in there to send to the council. They have the choice to use it or not use it. You know that.
Yeah. Any other comments or viewpoints? Okay, then we will proceed to the vote. The vote is requested by the petitioner and the one stipulation that they have agreed to, which is the lot consolidation. So if you are in favor of the request as submitted, you would vote yes. If you are not in favor of the request as submitted, you would vote no. Okay, so here is the recommended motion.
If this motion fails, we can resend a different motion, correct?
No. Then the
So then why
request-
can't we add a stipulation onto this right now? We've done it before.
And I'm advising you as your legal counsel to consider the due process rights of the applicant.
So I think as shared, if you do have a stipulation as a committee member that you want the city council to consider, we have these forms. Write them on there.
Okay, so I am going to read the motion. If you are not in favor, you would say no. If you are in favor, you will vote yes. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed special use and zoning variation for reduction of lot width and relief from the requirement to install the public sidewalk meets the standards of approval and are consistent with the UDO and comprehensive plan. And therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated July 17th, 2023, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the special use for playground and zoning variation, the reduction of lot width, and relief from the requirement to install the public sidewalk to enable construction of a playground at 457 Potter Street, case number CDC 2023-005, in accordance with the plan submitted and upon the following condition. The subject property shall be consolidated into a single lot via the lot consolidation process. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Babowitz.
If I want to put conditions, can I vote yes with conditions?
No, you
No.
have to vote on the motion that is on the floor.
I'm not ready to vote. I'm not going to abstain. Come back to me. Let me think about this a little bit.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yep, continue the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Babowitz is going to abstain.
No, I'm not.
Sir, he's going to postpone until we get through the roll
I'm going to
call.
think about this a second or two.
Postpone, okay. All right, Ms. Rudnicki.
Yes.
Mr. Parenti.
I'm going to say yes.
Ms. Zatko.
Yes.
Mr. Woods.
I abstain.
And Mr. Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
And then back to Mr. Babowitz, please.
Yes, but I will ask the city council to look into the 3 issues.
So your voting is yes.
Yes, I want the project to go through.
Okay, so the motion passes. The recommendation of the CDC, which will go to the Planning Zoning Committee, will be a recommended approval on the petition as submitted with the condition that is listed in the motion. And Kosha, is there a date for that PZB committee?
We will be in contact with the applicant. I believe the PZB meeting will be August 10th.
August 10th. Okay. And so for the applicant, Mr. Velez, this matter has gotten a recommended approval from this body. It will go to the Planning and Zoning Committee on August 10th. Okay, and then up to the City Council from there. Excuse me?
Do I have an opportunity to comment?
No, not at this point. Okay, so that concludes both matters for tonight. We will go back to the agenda, and I will cede the floor to you, Chairman Ochoa.
Moving forward with the agenda, is there any report from staff?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
No report from staff. With that, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those
Yes.
opposed signify by stating no. The motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.